Okay, so in this tutorial today, we are going to look at templates, which is something that is super important for making your workflow really fast. So you're not doing the same legwork over and over and over again, building the things that help you mix the music and do side chaining and things like that. It's just all there ready for you. You can plug in your sounds and make music as quick as possible, getting it out of your head and into the speakers in the shortest space of time possible. So stay tuned and have a look at what we have in our template, and then maybe you will like to build one for yourself. Okay, so here we have a template. So every single time I'm about to sit down and start making an Audiojack track, I open up this template because it's got all of the stuff in there that I'm going to always need and always use. The mixing's already done, so I just need to plug in sounds, and it's more, tweak a few bits, but then more or less it's going to sound good. Okay, so if let's take a look and see what's in here. So in here we've got a kick rack. So it's a drum rack that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 16 times 5 little racks of kick drums here that have already been shortlisted for being the sort of drums that we would use in our music right now. And then in there's like a techno rumble that you saw. I'll just explain how that works. So all the processing's already done. So, you can kind of move these notches around to clean this up. You've got a low cut there, got a compressor there, and then a little high pass filter like this for doing little break sections. And then we've got this techno rumble here. So you just turn up this if you want that kind of techno rumble. So all that's plugged in and ready to go. The kicks are always there. So then if we move on to the drums, now this is empty. It's the same thing. It's got lots of returns within the drum rack here. So if let's put in a 909 clap from Ableton standard drums. It's definitely not a clap. There we go, that's a clap. So I can send this to short reverb, long reverb, delay, a side chain, which won't work until the kick's playing, but that does a side chain. Here we've got this bendy psychedelic type delay, and then a flange, which is good for sort of snare rolls and things like that. So all of these things are already built in there. And then you can dial them into, so you'd say if you want reverb on certain drums and not others, then you can assign it to the specific drum pads. Then from here, got a drum bus to either use or not use, a saturator, which I pretty much always use on drums to a slight extent, because you can just get a little bit more bang for your buck out of your drums without having to push the headroom too much. Got an EQ in there, removing this low end and removing the very high end as well, just to give it a bit of an analog warmth. And then a limiter that's gain staging that at minus 1 dB, so it never gets louder than it's allowed to get. Okay, here I've got a drum auditioning audio track, and that's because if I wanted to have a drum loop, for example, in here, so let's just say, let's grab a hats loop. fancy. Something a bit more simple. All right, so let's choose that, for example. So let's say if I put that in here, it's now in there and it's warped. But what I can't do is I can't change the swing or anything like that. So what I would do is pull it into here first, into this auditioning section, and then I can start manipulating it if I wanted to. So maybe I want to add a bit of swing to it and stuff like that. And then I can then consolidate that. And then once it's changed and I've got it the way that I want it, then I can drag it back into this drum rack here. And I've changed it to taste. Okay, so then in the bass section, I'm always going to need a bass line for a track. So I've got a sub boom bass in here already, which is the kind of my go-to bass. But you can swap that out for whatever. Again, it's got this, let's just draw in a quick little bass line. Okay, so I've also got this high pass frequency. Oh. I must have saved those settings from last time, but normally it'd be, there wouldn't be any EQ or sort of heavy limiting. All the things would be in there. And then I've got this frequency for little the high pass filter for little breaks. Same as the kick. And then here we've got an EQ, a limiter, and then I've got a sidechain that just removes the bass when the kick's playing. So if I just drop in a little kick track there. So that's just removing the low end on the bass, and then here I've got a side chain that's just doing a normal side chain like that. So it's all there, ready to go. All I need to do is plug in the sounds and start making the music. Don't need to do all of this mixing stuff already. So in here I've got some vocal tracks with various vocal effects racks on there that sort of work in terms of mixing and effects and stuff like that. So if I find a vocal, there we go. What have we got in here? Oh, nothing's in there.
It ain't easy when you're caught in a spin.
All right, so let's just put that in there. So what I'm going to do is just pick apart of the vocal that has just a short section. Let's just say that. So here we've got reverb. Has effects, which is a widener. And then we've got these effects here, which is like a dub effect. So it's got all of these things that I can add to the vocal very quickly. I don't need to go and start building effects racks and things like that. You can just throw a vocal in there, apply these things, and then ready to go. So then here I've got effects. So again, I've got a drum rack, and this is just full of all different types of effects. Crashes. Transition effects. Risers. So obviously we may need more than just that, but they'll give us the tools to get started. So you've got like all that at your fingertips. And then lastly, there's an ambience rack here, which has got vinyl crackle, tape hiss. Oh, let me just solo that so you can hear it. Very subtle, but that just like adds a little bit of sort of vintage warmth to the tracks. And then here we've got a bunch of return tracks, which are there for adding a sort of gluing the mix together. So let's say I've got these elements here. Maybe I want to add the same reverb to all of them to make them sound like they're being performed in the same room. So I'll just dial in a little bit of this reverb. And then there's a delay. This is like a glitch effect. It's good for stuff like vocals. I mean, you can put it on drums as well, but it's a little bit more... that can get a little bit too much if you use it too much. Then we've got a big verb here for stuff like transitioning into a break. So you might have something like this. And then that'll go into a break section to give you that big verb, or you could do like a sub slam with like a kick going into that reverb. And then we've got another one of these bendy delays here. Good for sort of like building tension and tripping things out a little bit. And then a long delay, which is good for kind of the end of a breakdown where you've had a vocal playing and then you want to get rid of the vocal and just go into something more energetic. So maybe you would have something like this. And then the beat drops in. So it just loops along like that. And then over on the master track, the main track, there's already a mastering chain on there which needs to be adjusted to taste depending on what elements you've got in there, but it's always pretty much the same. So the way that the template is mixed is so that if I take that mastering chain off, it's clipping already. So you can see it's getting up to about 4 dB higher than the 0 dB limit. So then when I turn this on, I've got a limiter here, the L2 Ultra Maximizer, and that's just clipping this 4 dB excess off. And then I'm pushing another 2 dB into a stock Ableton limiter just to give it a little bit of extra volume. So using the two limiters in tandem gets you extra bang for your buck without one single limiter having to work too hard. And then there's other stuff in here like bass mono and these reductive EQs. I might do something like that as well. But it's all in there, so I just need to quickly turn things on and off and tweak things, and then it just allows you to make music as fast as possible without having to do the same legwork again and again every time you're doing a project. And not only that, but it will give your tracks a consistency because you're using the same levels, the same reverbs and delays, so your tracks will get a sort of feel for them. Now, this template will evolve all the time, over time, depending on the sort of style of music that we're doing, and sort of improvements will be made and things like that. So then your music will evolve as the template evolves in terms of how it sounds. Hey guys, hope that was helpful. So if you would like to build your own template, feel free to drop me an email and we can do a one-on-one session online or in person here in the studio if you're on the island.